The man with the quiet smiled door to the rooftop restaurant opened with a soft chime. The hostess didn't look up at first. She was scrolling through a tablet, updating reservations and trying not to lose her patience. It was a busy Friday night in Los Angeles. It's the kind of night where every table was reserved weeks in advance. Only the most polished guests were allowed to stay, and that's why she blinked twice. When she saw him, a man walked in wearing a faded black hoodie, cargo pants with a rip near the knee, and worn-out sneakers. His hair was messy. He had stubble on his chin and no security with him. No assistant. No entourage. He looked like he'd just come in from a rainy street corner. But there was something about the way he stood, shoulders back, calm eyes, quiet. The hostess gave him a tight smile. "Sir, we're fully booked tonight." The man smiled gently. "That's all right. I'll wait." She paused. "Do you have a reservation?" Before he could answer, a tall young waiter walked past the desk, carrying a tray. He glanced at the man and chuckled under his breath. He probably got lost. "This place isn't for hikers, man." The hostess looked embarrassed. "Sir, you really need a reservation. This is one of the most exclusive rooftops in the city." The man didn't flinch, simply nodded and walked over to the bench near the elevator. He sat down without complaint. His fingers were folded in his lap. He didn't take out a phone or a fidget, just sat. Quietly, the waiter passed again, this time whispering to another server nearby. "Check out the hobo trying to get a table." "What's he think this is Burger Shack?" They laughed. They didn't know who he was, but one busboy paused, young. A guy named Javier, who had just started last month. He tilted his head. He had seen this man's face somewhere, maybe on a screen, maybe in a movie, maybe in real life. 10 minutes passed. The restaurant continued buzzing. Celebrities at table 4, tech mogul at table 2, influencers filming drinks. But the man on the bench didn't move until a soft chime echoed from the hostess's tablet. She frowned. "What's wrong?" asked the waiter, still smirking. The hostess's eyes widened. "There's a VIP override on the system. Table 1. It's been released for manual seating." "That's the owner's table," the waiter said, voice low now. She looked up slowly. "It says, guest of Mr. Juno." Mr. Juno was the restaurant's billionaire investor. He never gave away table 1. Never. The hostess stood and walked over to the man on the bench. "Sir," she said, voice now careful. "Table 1 is ready. Please follow me." The waiter dropped his tray, and the man just smiled that same quiet smile, stood up and nodded. "Thank you." As he followed her past the tables, whispers began. A couple turned to look closer. Someone pulled out their phone and gasped, "Oh my God. That's Keanu Reeves." The waiter turned pale. Keanu sat down at table 1, still dressed like he didn't care about appearances. Because he didn't. And Javier, the young busboy, brought him water without being asked. Keanu smiled up at him. "Thank you, brother." Javier nodded, heart pounding. 20 minutes later, the owner himself stormed in, laughing loudly and giving Keanu a hug as the entire restaurant watched. But the waiter who mocked him earlier stood frozen, unsure if he should go over, apologize, or run. He did none of those, because just then the manager handed the bill to Keanu for signature, though. It was complimentary. Keanu looked at it, paused, and then calmly added something with his pen. When he handed it back, the manager's face changed. He blinked fast and whispered something to the staff. Keanu had added a $25,000 tip. Javier was included, but so was the waiter who mocked him, and that's when the waiter walked up, stunned. "Sir, I didn't realize who you were." Keanu looked up at him, calm, kind. "Doesn't matter who I am," he said. "Kindness shouldn't depend on that." And then he stood up and left. No cameras, no speech, just a quiet man in a hoodie walking back into the city night, but no one at that restaurant would ever forget what happened, especially the ones who laughed. The second chance nobody saw coming next morning, the restaurant buzzed with leftover whispers from the night before. Every employee had heard about it by now. Keanu Reeves, the tip, the outfit. The moment of quiet grace that felt more powerful than any celebrity entrance or viral stunt. But for Liam, the waiter who had mocked him, it was something heavier. He couldn't sleep. Not because he felt embarrassed, but because of what Keanu had said before leaving. Kindness shouldn't depend on that. Those words rang in his ears. They weren't said with anger or pride. They were just true. And Liam realized he hadn't just disrespected a famous actor. He had disrespected a person who had shown more dignity than he ever had behind that white apron. He showed up early that morning. No one asked him to. He stood by the staff lockers in silence. Javier, the young busboy, was mopping near the back. "You were the only one who treated him right," Liam said quietly. Javier looked up. "You mean Keanu?" Liam nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "I messed up." Javier didn't say anything at first. Then he walked over and handed Liam the mop. "Then help." Liam blinked. "What?" "Start there," Javier said. A new day. Liam took the mop without a word. Throughout the day, Liam worked differently. He didn't rush past the kitchen staff. He didn't bark orders at Javier. He opened doors for guests without judging their clothes. And though the memory of his mistakes stayed with him, it began to shift into something else. Engine. A reason to be better. What Liam didn't know was that the story had gone further than the restaurant. A quiet post made by a guest the night before had gone viral. "I watched a man in worn clothes sit quietly while people mocked him. He turned out to be Keanu Reeves. And he tipped $25,000, not just with money, but with dignity. This world needs more people like him." Over 1 million likes in 12 hours. Keanu didn't comment. He never did. But that evening, something strange happened. A delivery arrived at the restaurant. A large wooden box, carefully wrapped with no name. The manager opened it, curious inside. Was a perfectly folded black suit. Classic, elegant, sharp. And on top of it, a small note handwritten in neat, simple letters. "To the one who mocked my clothes, this isn't revenge, it's a reminder. Sometimes the outside doesn't show. The inside, there was no signature. But everyone knew who it was from." Liam was called into the manager's office. He stared at the box for a long time. "What do I do with this?" he asked, voice shaking. The manager didn't answer. Javier stepped in instead. "You put it on," he said, "when you show us who you want to be." An hour later, Liam stepped onto the restaurant floor, wearing the suit. He wasn't smiling to impress anyone. He wasn't walking with pride. He was walking with awareness. He looked at each guest differently now. An old woman in a cardigan, a father with 3 messy kids, a man in jeans and a t-shirt reading alone. He offered them all the same warm, respectful tone, and every so often, he'd glance at table 1, the one Keanu had sat at, still empty, still reserved. "But Javier had a hunch he'll be back," Javier said. "Guys like that don't just disappear." And Liam looked down at the folded note he kept in his pocket now. "I hope so," he whispered. "This time, I want to thank him right." What Liam didn't know is that Keanu was already watching from the elevator, in the same hoodie, smiling quietly. The reason he came back to the restaurant was quieter than usual that afternoon. The lunch rush had passed, and most of the staff had gone on break. Javier was refilling napkins. Liam was polishing wine glasses near the back bar, the black suit still sharp, still unfamiliar but worn with purpose. Now then came the sound. The elevator door opened with a soft ding. Nobody rushed to look. Not anymore. They had all learned something since that night. But Javier did glance up just once, and his eyes widened. He dropped the napkins without noticing. Liam looked over. "What is it?" "He's back," Javier whispered. Heart-skipped Keanu Reeves stepped out of the elevator in the same faded hoodie, the same worn shoes. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him was an older woman. She wore a soft blue scarf around her neck, her steps slow but graceful. Her eyes scanned the restaurant like she had never been there before, and yet, like it meant something personal. Liam stepped forward. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. Right away, but Keanu saw him, nodded gently, and then looked to Javier. You again, he said with a warm grin. Do you remember everything? Javier smiled. We never forgot. Keanu looked to the woman beside him. This is Mrs. Sato. She taught me piano when I was 12. The staff blinked. She's the reason I ever believed I could create anything. It's her birthday today. Javier stepped forward. We'd be honored to seat you. Keanu held up a hand. We're not here to sit, not yet. Turn to Liam, and this time it was Liam who spoke first. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Not because of who you are, because of who I wasn't. Keanu studied him for a moment, not judging, just seeing. Then let's both start fresh, Keanu said. Today's not about mistakes. It's about gratitude. He placed his hand gently on Mrs. Sato's back. She hasn't been to nice place in years. Her home was lost in a fire. Insurance didn't cover it. She lost all her instruments, her students, her quiet. Javier swallowed. Liam stepped forward. She doesn't have to lose this moment. Keanu smiled, and the room softened around him. They led Mrs. Sato to table 1, the legendary table that becomes something more than a symbol of power. It was now a table of kindness. Liam served her himself, but not with flashy gestures or forced charm. He served her like she was the most important person he'd ever met. And maybe she was. Mrs. Sato took each bite with care. She paused often, tears welled in her eyes, not because of the food, but because of the quiet respect, the attention, the dignity. Do you play anymore? Liam asked gently. She shook her head. Not in a long time. Anna leaned forward. You will tonight. She frowned. I don't have a piano. You do now, Keanu said. At that moment, 2 delivery men entered the restaurant's side door, pushing in a covered object. Liam's eyes widened. Javier gasped. They pulled back the cover to reveal a stunning black upright piano. Sleek, beautiful, perfectly tuned. The name engraved on it. Sato and Son, Mrs. Sato covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. Keanu placed her hands gently on the keys. Your music saved a broken boy, he said softly. Now let that music save you. She played. Not for the crowd, not for fame, but for healing. Liam stood near the bar, heart full. This wasn't just about Keanu anymore. This was about all the people. He overlooked the old, the quiet, the humble. When the song ended, no one clapped. Not because they weren't moved, but because they didn't want to break the silence. That kind of silence you only hear when something truly good has happened. Keanu stood, helped Mrs. Sato to her feet, and looked to Liam one. Last time, thank you, he said, and Liam knew he didn't mean just for the food, he meant for seeing her. The letter under the locker. Next morning, Liam arrived early again before the sun even hit the rooftop windows. It had become a habit now, not just to beat the rush, but to prepare with care, straighten every glass, fold every napkin with purpose, as if the smallest things now mattered more than ever. But that morning, something was different. When Liam opened his locker to change into his work shirt, a folded envelope slipped out and fell to the floor. He picked it up slowly. It was thick, the kind of paper you only see in old movies or formal invitations. No return address, no seal. Just his name, written in soft black ink: Liam. He looked around. No one else was in the staff room yet. He sat on the bench and opened. It inside was a single handwritten note. You have a choice. Meet me tonight after closing. Rooftop piano. Bring nothing but honesty. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting. It matched the note that came with the suit. His hands trembled slightly. That night, the shift moved slow and heavy. Liam served each table with steady hands, but his mind kept drifting. To the letter. To the piano. To the man who had come in not as a star but as a lesson. At 11:23 p.m., the last guest left. By 11:41, the lights had dimmed. The kitchen crew was gone. Javier passed by with a raised eyebrow. You staying late? Liam just nodded. Yeah. All right, I think so. Javier gave a soft smile. If it's him, tell him I said hi. Liam waited until everyone was gone, Then he climbed the narrow stairwell that led above the restaurant's glass dome up to the private rooftop garden, where staff usually never went. The city lights below felt distant, quiet, like a world paused in stillness. And there he was, Keanu sitting at the piano they had brought for Mrs. Sato, now tucked safely under the pergola, covered in vines and soft fairy lights. He was playing something soft, something old. Not polished but full of feeling. Liam walked over. "You came," Keanu said, without looking up. "I didn't think I had a choice." "Everyone does." Keanu finished the last note and stood. "You used to be someone else," he said calmly. "Someone better." Liam looked down. "I lost that person. Then it's time to find him again." Keanu reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. He handed it to Liam. Liam unfolded it and stared. His mouth went dry. It was a job offer. Not for a better restaurant, not for a promotion, but for a mentorship program. A kindness initiative. A quiet, global project Keanu funded, secretly placing people who had fallen off their path into opportunities to give back, to serve with purpose, to heal others while healing themselves. "Why me?" Liam asked. "Because you admitted your mistake," Keanu said. "And because you treated her like a human being when it mattered most." Liam looked up. "But I don't deserve it." Keanu nodded. "Exactly." That answer made Liam's chest tighten. "It starts next week," Keanu added. "You'll be assigned to a shelter in Vancouver. No cameras, no posts, just people, and pain, and possibility." Liam folded the letter. "Do I have time to think?" Keanu smiled. "Of course, but don't think too long. Real change only happens when you step forward before you're ready." Then he sat back down and began to play again. Liam stood there. In silence, somewhere inside the version of himself he thought was gone, flickered back to life. Not all at once, but enough to know it was still there. The face he never expected to see again. Vancouver was cold when Liam stepped off the train. Not winter cold, but the kind that creeps into your jacket. It reminds you you're far from home, far from comfort, far from the version of yourself that once wore a crisp suit and looked down on others for not doing the same. He had no suitcase. Just a backpack, the letter Keanu gave him, and the address of a place called Willow Rise Shelter as he walked the streets. He wondered if this was the right choice. Was he really ready to be someone new? When he reached the shelter, it wasn't what he expected. It wasn't falling apart, but it wasn't fancy either. Long brick building with large windows and a faded mural on the side. People sat on the steps, some laughing, some quiet, some lost in their own worlds. A woman at the front desk greeted him with a kind smile. "You must be Liam," she said. "They told us you were coming." "Who's they?" "Someone who believes in second chances." He was shown to a small room upstairs, bare, but clean. Then he was handed a list. Tasks, names, rules. Liam read them twice. He'd be doing everything. Serving meals, sweeping halls, listening to stories, and more than anything, just being present. The first few days were hard. People didn't trust. Easily some ignored him, some tested him, some asked him questions that cut deeper than expected. But he stayed every day he stayed. Something inside softened. Then came day 5. Liam was stacking blankets near the storage room, and he heard the sound of a slow cough behind him. Deep, familiar. He turned around and froze, standing there, eyes wide, shoulders tense. Was his brother Caleb. Same crooked nose, same jawline, but thinner, rougher. Broken in places Liam couldn't see. They hadn't spoken in almost 4 years. Liam had cut Caleb off when his addiction got too bad. After one too many stolen things, one too many lies, one too many nights wondering if he'd get another phone call from the hospital or worse. "Caleb." Liam whispered. Caleb stared at him. "Liam, what? What are you doing here? I work here now." Caleb laughed, but it was bitter. "You working at a shelter?" Liam stepped forward. "What about you?" Caleb held up his intake slip, trying to stay warm. "Been on the street 3 months. Lost everything." Again, Liam's heart twisted, not in anger, Not in pride, just grief. He nodded slowly. Come on, let's get you food. Caleb didn't move. Why are you being nice to me now? He asked. You hated me? Liam didn't flinch. No, I hated what you did. But I never stopped wanting you to come back. They sat in the cafeteria in silence. Liam brought him soup, a blanket, and finally, a chair next to him at the evening circle, where stories were shared, not judged, not corrected. Just, Caleb didn't speak that first night, but he came. Back the next day, and the next. 3 days later, after helping fold clothes, he turned to Liam and said, You're different. Liam nodded. So are you. They both laughed, but it was quiet. It's fragile, like maybe, just maybe, they could build something again. Not the old life, not the polished version their parents once hoped for, but something real. Later, that week, Liam opened his locker to find a second letter, same handwriting, but shorter this time. You did what many don't. You stayed. Proud of you. Keep going. Liam smiled, tucked the letter into his pocket, and walked back to Caleb's. Sighed this time he wasn't alone. The Kindness Project sky over Vancouver was gray that morning. Soft clouds rolled like slow waves across the skyline, casting the shelter in pale light. Liam stood by the front desk, sipping weak coffee and watching the door. He wasn't waiting for anyone, but something in his chest said, today would matter. Downstairs, Caleb was organizing canned goods with 2 other guests. He had shaved, finally washed his clothes, smiled sometimes. No one said it aloud, but he was getting better. And Liam. He wasn't the man who mocked strangers anymore. He was the one others came to for calm, for warmth, for answers when the world felt too heavy. At 9:13 a.m., the front door opened, and everything changed. Keanu Reeves stepped inside without a sound. He wore the same hoodie, same shoes, same quiet eyes. Liam stood up fast, stunned. Keanu. Keanu smiled gently. Just visiting. Staff froze. Guests stared, but Keanu didn't seek attention. He walked slowly down the hallway, looking at every photo on the wall, every notice board. Every face that peeked out from dormitory. Doors? How's the work? He asked Liam. Hard, Liam said. But worth it. Good kindness should cost something, otherwise it's just decoration. They walked together into the dining area, and that's when Caleb saw him. He blinked. Twice, hands still wrapped around a tray of soup bowls. Wait. Is that? Liam nodded. Keanu saw Caleb too. He walked up to him and said nothing at first. Then calmly, You look like someone who's choosing to stay. Caleb swallowed. Trying is the most powerful thing a broken person can do, Keanu said. I failed too many times, Caleb said. Keanu nodded. So did I. The room went still. He turned to everyone watching now, and then, without planning, at Keanu. I tapped onto the low wooden platform where the shelter sometimes held announcements. He looked around. No cameras, no microphones, just people. I started. The Kindness Project, he said, because too many people confuse image with worth. I've been judged for dressing down, for keeping quiet, for not playing the fame game. But I've also seen the way the world chews up people who fall behind. He looked to Caleb. People like this man, he said. Caleb looked down, ashamed. Who is still here? Then he looked to Liam. And people like this one who once mocked a stranger but chose to become a bridge instead of a wall. Back tears, Keanu continued, voice low but full of weight. Kindness is not pity. It is not charity. It is respect. The belief that someone's worst day is not the end of their story. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. He handed it to the shelter director. Starting today, Willow Rise will be the new Northwest Training Center for the Kindness Project. Job placement, recovery, dignity, restoration, all funded. Quietly, no red tape, no press releases. The director blinked. You mean this is permanent? Only if you want it to be, Keanu said. The staff nodded. Guests began to clap, but Caleb just stood still, overwhelmed. Keanu turned back to him one last time. One of my favorite quotes, said softly. Goes like this. Sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried. But maybe you've been planted. And then he hugged Caleb. Just for a second, but enough to break something open in him. Caleb wept. So did Liam the next day. Local news tried to catch wind of the event, but no photos surfaced, no quotes, because Keanu had left that same night. No limo, no cameras, just a man walking under streetlights in an old hoodie, vanishing into the fog. But what he left behind would last far longer than any headline. Because in the weeks that followed, Caleb became a mentor for new arrivals. Liam began teaching evening classes on emotional recovery. Javier, back at the restaurant, started a community kitchen with Keanu's quiet backing. And Willow Rise became the first of 12 global kindness centers to come. All because one man had been mocked for looking ordinary, and chose to answer with something extraordinary. Not revenge, not pride, but grace.